lunchtime again. I just got done watching a very inspiring video of this woman that she was extremely overweight. She was very, very overweight. And she lost all of it, like by literally just working out at home and just being dedicated, changed her diet. She'd basically, for 13 years, she got herself out of an abusive relationship, and for 13 years she just isolated herself and raised her kids and stopped taking care of herself. And she was, you know, very large, and she decided to change how she ate and how she took care of herself. And man, it was an impressive transformation, very inspiring. I love watching like the show The Biggest Loser and transformation videos. And I think it's the confidence, the self-confidence that people get from doing it that I think inspires me the most. I think it's just absolutely amazing watching people go from zero to hero just because they finally, you know, got fed up and they decided they wanted to do something different. And it's just beyond inspiring. I really, really, really enjoy it. And so, and then I think about, you know, myself and what I want to do in my own life. And obviously, I'm not, you know, obese or anything like that. But I've struggled mentally my whole life with, you know, self-worth and appreciating my body, and I've always wanted things for myself that I just don't have. And it's a mental struggle for sure. There's nothing actually wrong, nothing actually that needs to be fixed. I've got no health issue, you know, that's really looming up, you know, above my head or anything like that, but I feel like I want to help other people, you know, with some of the things they struggle with, you know, weight, self-esteem. And I feel like if I can work on myself first, then I can help other people, you know, with the things they struggle with. Because it's important to me. You know, I didn't have a great self-esteem growing up, didn't make friends, still struggle with these things somewhat. I've changed myself a lot. I've fought very hard to become somebody that I can be proud of. It's taken me a long time to appreciate myself, but I've got a long ways to go. And I think that's part of my journey here, you know, one day at a time. Keep pushing, keep working at it. And I think that's why I like doing this YouTube channel, video, whatever. I like talking to the camera. I like getting the exercise in. I like thinking about, what does my transformation look like? You know? What does my mental transformation look like? What does my physical transformation look like? What am I capable of? Because sometimes, honestly, I have no idea. I don't know what I'm capable of. I'd kind of like to find out. The weather is amazing today. It might be in the 80s. Yesterday I was out rucking and it was 107, and somehow we've got an overcast sky today. Beautiful, feels great. My ruck was pretty tough yesterday. Got a serious blister on my foot, and I kind of thought about not going, but I decided I kind of needed to, so I did, and here I am. Man, that's sad. I think somebody was killed here for some reason, and they put up a memorial to them by that tree. That's pretty sad. I don't know what's going on with that. I don't remember hearing anything unless it's been there a long time, and it might have been. But, wow, I hate to see that. But yeah, so fitness is one of the big things in my life. It's always been one of my passions. And I wouldn't necessarily, I don't see myself as a fit person. I mean, I'm not out of shape. Well, I am somewhat now simply because I had heart surgery 6 months ago. But I feel like I've always wanted to, I want a six pack. I want larger muscles. I mean, I grew up as a super skinny kid. I was very skinny. Got made fun of, got bullied, had a low self-esteem. I got, a lot of slim and skinny and knobby knees, that kind of drove me crazy. And even when people didn't mean it, they didn't realize, I hated it. I hated being skinny. And I know what it must be like to be overweight and called fat or think you're fat, because I had the exact same thing, except it was the opposite. I was just skinny. Skinny arms. And of course, it made me feel less of a man or whatever, because in my mind, men were tough and muscular, and my stepdad, he had dark skin and I had pale skin, and he was fit and I was skinny. He had dark hair and I had blonde hair. And then of course I started losing my hair early, had a receding hairline way early, in the time, when everybody else was growing their hair out, and it was the 80s, 80s, 90s. People were growing their hair out and my hair was falling out. And of course, on TV there was commercials, hair club for men, and everything was like, well, I didn't have a life and I was a horrible, worthless person until I got hair. Look at me. Now I can go out and enjoy my life. I'm good, and I've got a girlfriend because I've got hair. What a crock of shit. But you know what? That's what the marketing was. That was the marketing for me. How horrible your life is without it. But if you have it, your life is great. So, of course, I didn't have it, so therefore, my life, terrible. I don't believe that anymore. I don't really care. Well, what are you gonna do? Sure, I'd love to have hair, but it doesn't work that way. And that's okay. Sometimes society makes you feel like things are good or bad. And it's like, who decided that anyways? Who decided what was beautiful, what's not beautiful, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, what's attractive, what's not attractive? Who decided that, and who decided that for all of us? If you have money, if you have success, all these little milestones of worth, bunch of garbage. And so we decide, who's ugly, who's not, and that makes them worthy or not. Bunch of BS. People are worthy just because they're worthy, because they're friggin' human. In fact, some of the most beautiful people are just the most nastiest people. They take for granted, what being human really is, or what being kind is. And man, it's important to remember that we're all human. We all deserve love. Well, step one to get out of your funk is to do something. Movement is king. You got to get out. You got to walk. If you can run. I'm on my lunch break. Luckily, I'm not getting sweaty. I have a meeting right after lunch, so I was like, oh man, I don't want to go out there and sweat to death. And today it's fine because I'm not going to sweat too terrible. I'm just walking, and it's not that hot, so I will sweat some. I'm thankful to be here though. One thing that I want to do is start trying to meditate. I've been wanting to do that for a really long time, and I don't know, it's really hard to do. And I'm sure, you know, most people would agree, you know, sitting there, especially when you have ADHD, like I think I have. It's hard to just sit there and do nothing. But I think meditation, there's some sort of power in it. And I need to figure that out. I'm very interested in trying to learn how to do that. But I think like anything else, you got to start, you got to do it, and you got to try it. You can't be afraid to try it and it not work or whatever, you know, I mean, everything takes practice. In fact, you know what? I think I'll try meditating right now. Why not? Wow, that was pretty awesome. It's funny how the mind wanders though when you do that, but something kind of healing about it, I think. I think that's something I'd like to pursue on a more regular basis. In fact, just being out here, doing nothing is nice. I can hear the cicadas. There's people out here walking and enjoying the day. It helps that the weather's nice right now. It's overcast, so that's nice. Wonderful. Oh, what a great day. What a great day to have a great day. I think I'll start walking back. Why not? There's been all kinds of challenges that I've began and never completed, like 75 hard. You know, I got pretty far. Well, I mean, I didn't get that far, maybe 30, 40 days. And then something happens, excuses pop in, and you don't continue. And that's frustrating, you know, when you over and over and you start challenges and you don't complete them. Kind of chips away at your self-esteem after a while. It's important to, you know, see if you can finish things. It's super important. The water taxi was driving by. That's pretty cool. Like I said on another one of my videos, I drove that thing for a summer. It was pretty fun. You know, you get tourists and people that want to know more about Oklahoma City, and you tell them some of the history of it, and people are usually pretty appreciative of it. It's pretty fun. Of course, I didn't know anything being from LA when I first started. I had to kind of just pick up the information when I could. And luckily, people were pretty forthcoming, you know, with the information, and that helped a lot. But history is pretty cool. I like history. Usually, history is kind of predictable. It's usually people being idiots and doing terrible things, and some good things come out of it, and bad things come out of it, of course. And that's usually history. Doesn't matter where you go, that's typically history. Because mostly any kind of history that deals with people are people. They're predictable. They're tribal. They're scared. They're greedy. That's the nature of people. And sad but true. But there's a lot of good in people too. And over the years, I've had to really look for that. I've had to look for the good in people, because for the longest time, I didn't believe there was any good in people. I thought most of the good that you see is fake. But there really is good people. And I'm trying to become one of those people myself, which is very challenging in and of itself. You know, it's funny. I was listening to a podcast on the way to work today, And I heard something that I hadn't really thought of previously, but essentially thought determines our reality. Every thought is good or bad depending on how you look at it. But more importantly, every thought is based on comparison. And I never really thought about this before, but it really hit home with me. It really rang true that every thought you have is based on a comparison. You know, your brain is trying to compare everything to everything else. So how you feel, you're comparing it to how you felt before, or how you perceive you could feel or should feel. All your emotions are comparisons of other emotions that you've either witnessed, felt yourself, again, perceive that you should feel. Reality is all based on comparisons. So when you see a tree, the only reason you even know it's a tree is because you're comparing it to somebody telling you this is a tree, or you've observed from somebody else or heard from somebody else that this is a tree. The color green is only based on comparisons of other greens that somebody taught you was green, shades of green. Anger is just based on, you know, relative feelings of anger and stories of anger and what you've experienced anger before. Because the strange thing is, and the person I was listening to gave this analogy, if you couldn't smell, if you didn't have a nose, if you had no way to smell, you could be sitting next to a garbage truck full of skunks and have no idea that it smells, that it's a garbage truck full of skunks. Somebody would have to describe what that is to you, and you'd have no comparison to go off of, so it would be meaningless. But since you have maybe some knowledge of what something smells like, whether it's a bad smell or skunks, you know what that means to you, what kind of feeling that brings up. And so you compare your experience with that smell based on what other people or yourself has experienced. And so everything is based on experience and comparison. I just think that's something to really wrap your mind around, you know, like comparison is literally how we come up with every single thought that we have. That I've never thought about that before. They say comparison is a thief of joy, but the reality is comparison is the only way that you can think through anything. Because without comparison, you have no thoughts on the matter. Like if I was to tell you about a fish that they discovered in the ocean, well, automatically you try to compare it to other fish that you've heard of, or pictures or stories. If you'd never heard of a fish, you'd have nothing to compare it with, so you'd have no thoughts on it other than what somebody's telling you. And even when somebody's telling you something, you're gonna start comparing what they're telling you with something else. Even if it's not a fish, you just might be thinking of something scary or something large or other underwater things that you've seen before. It's fascinating. I mean, even as I say it, I have to think about that. I have to think about, is that true? Is every thought based on a comparison? I have to really think, you know, could somebody disprove that? And so far, I really agree with it. I think it's actually true. I think every thought is a comparison. Like when I'm walking around with this camera, for instance, and I feel like people are looking at me. My brain is automatically doing calculations about when I felt like somebody was looking at me, or what feelings should I feel if somebody was looking at me, or a judgment that they could be making. The only reason I even know it is probably because I've experienced myself judging somebody, where I've noticed somebody doing something strange and I thought, what does that mean to me? And so your brain is doing all these calculations, trying to think, how can you compare this to something else? Well, that's pretty much all I got for today. I'm gonna go back in, cool down for just a minute before I have a meeting. A lot of interesting thoughts, and you know, it's funny, the more you do it, the more you walk around and you talk, the more you start thinking of other things that you want to talk about. Philosophical subjects or whatever. It's very interesting. It's very interesting. It's very fun. I enjoy the process. All right, well, that's all I got. If anybody's watching, we'll see you next time. Peace.